All the characters in the story are over 18 years old. The heat returned towards the end of summer. The days turned cold for a while, giving all residents of the city a brief respite from constant sweating. But now, at the end of August, a steady, prolonged temperature of more than 35 degrees enveloped the city again, bringing suffering to its residents. Maddie pressed the button on the air conditioner in her car. It was already over 8 o'clock, and it was starting to get dark, but outside the car the air was like in a sauna. Maddie was sitting in the passenger seat next to her son Kyle, who was driving the car. She wasn't sure why he was driving. It was her car, not Kyle's, but he asked her to drive in a tone that she didn't want to refuse for reasons she couldn't understand. They went to the mall to do some shopping before he returned to college. They intended to shop early, but other things got in the way, and they were late. They will have to hurry to make their purchases before the mall closes. Maddie looked at Kyle and shook her head with a smile. He was wearing what he always wore, flip-flops, baggy shorts, and a t-shirt with the name of a rap group Maddie had never heard of. The muscles in Kyle's arms pulled at the sleeves of his shirt. I do not know why you bother to buy new clothes for school at all. You're just going to wear the same thing. It never looks any different. Kyle shrugged his shoulders. It will get colder over time. I need to buy some long trousers, a long-sleeve shirt, and a hoodie. They drove the rest of the way to the mall in silence. Maddie's mind was preoccupied with what had happened between her and Kyle a few weeks earlier. They were making love, just a meter away from her drunken and inconsiderate husband Carl. Since then, they have had no contact for several weeks. Kyle wanted this, but she kept him away from her. It wasn't because she didn't feel what Kyle felt. She liked the way he looked at her. But Maddie was Kyle's mom, and as his mom, she had to do the right thing. She was married, and he was still in college, and his whole life was ahead of him. It took the greatest effort of will in her life. But she resisted Kyle's pleas and told him they couldn't do it anymore. Now, heading to the mall, Maddie realized that she only had a few days left to hold out until Kyle returned to his college. No doubt, when he did, he would have been focused on the mature girls in the dorms around him, not on his middle-aged mom staying at home. Then she would have to decide what to do with her marriage to Carl. But she didn't need to think about it now. For now, she just needed to focus on helping her son prepare for his return to college. That's what a good mother should do, right? She looked at Kyle, who was sitting in the driver's seat, and smiled. Kyle was only 19, but his face was chiseled like a man's, just like her husband's face had been years ago. Kyle smiled back. Kyle's look confused her. Part of her wished he would stop looking at her like that. Sons shouldn't look at their mothers like that. She was supposed to help him buy clothes and escort him back to college. She had to put aside her selfish needs. When they arrived, the parking lot at the mall was surprisingly crowded, considering the late hour. Obviously, others were also making last-minute purchases for school facilities. Kyle steered the car to a multi-level parking lot to find an empty space. He circled up and down several times until the car emerged on the upper level of the garage, under a darkening twilight sky. Maddie watched her son's driving prowess approvingly. Kyle parked the car away from the other cars. Kyle and Maddie got out of the car, and Maddie saw the night-lit panorama of the city around her from the top floor of the garage. Neon in its own way, it was beautiful. Before they went anywhere, and before Kyle locked the car door, he turned to his mom with a strained look. Maddie shook her head. It wasn't going to be an ordinary trip to the mall with my son. Kyle, we're in public. Someone might see us. There's no one around, and it's almost dark. Kyle and Maddie got out of the car and walked briskly to the garage elevator. Maddie was taken aback by Kyle's assertiveness. He was always a polite, usually quiet boy. But the events that happened between them earlier in the summer seemed to stir something inside him and make him bolder. And even after a few weeks of chastity, it didn't go away. Maddie sensed the presence of an animal in her son. It was a relief to enter the mall, feel the rush of cool, air-conditioned air, and get out of the sauna-like atmosphere outdoors. At first, they decided to do some shopping for Kyle because he had to go to school soon. They quickly reached a large store where Kyle could buy everything he needed. It didn't take long. Kyle wasn't the type to linger on clothes shopping. He wasn't too picky about what to wear and made a quick decision. In an instant, they left the store with a large bag full of new clothes for his return to college. "Let's get some ice cream," Kyle said. "We don't have time," Maddie said. "The mall will close soon." "Come on, it will be quick. I need something sweet." Maddie was surprised at how overbearing Kyle had become towards her. It bothered her a little, but she found herself strangely submissive and receptive to her son's recent demands. He was tall, and his body was lean and sturdy, the same as her husband Carl's had been many years ago. Maddie didn't resist. They silently headed together to the food court in the center of the mall on the second floor to buy ice cream. Maddie ordered pistachios, and Kyle ordered cookies with cream in small cups with tiny plastic spoons. They were sitting at a small table in the middle of the square, surrounded by stalls of various food vendors. "Kyle, what are you doing?" she challenged him. Maddie looked around the food court. There were many tables in the square, but few people. Most of them left the mall on foot because of the late hour. The only person who could see anything was a middle-aged man in cotton trousers and a white button-down shirt, sitting at a table in front of them about 9 meters away and munching a hot dog. "So you're saying that if we were alone, you wouldn't mind if I did?" Maddie let out an exasperated sigh. It wasn't what she meant, but her words gave her away. And maybe Kyle was right. Maybe she wanted something she couldn't admit to herself. She didn't want to be a mom who couldn't say no, but she felt like that was exactly what she had become. "That's not what I'm saying at all, and you know it. We shouldn't do this. Not here, not anywhere else. But especially here." She turned to Kyle. "Kyle, someone might see us. We can't do it here. No one is looking at us. They are focused on their food." Maddie could have moved, but she didn't. The risk of exposure was great. "You're mine, Mom." "Kyle, I'm not yours. I'm your mother." Kyle leaned toward her. "You're my mother. But you're not just my mother." Maddie blushed. She didn't even know her son anymore. When they finished scraping the last remnants of ice cream from the bottom of their cups, Kyle spoke up. "Let's go shopping again." The linen shelves seemed to be empty, except for the cashier, a young woman with long, straight, dark hair, who stood behind the counter with a bored, absent expression on her face. Maddie entered the department and walked between the shelves with bras hanging everywhere, and it occurred to her that she had never bought underwear with her son before. Buying underwear is not something you usually do with your son. But as Maddie walked between the rows and counters, she felt her son's heavy breathing behind her. She could feel his presence. She turned around and saw that he was standing right behind her. She couldn't remember the last time Carl had said something nice about the underwear she was wearing. A husband was supposed to notice such things, but Carl didn't notice it. He was usually too distracted by the TV show or too drunk. "That's too much," Kyle said. "What do you mean?" Maddie replied. "Try this one." Kyle pointed to a pair of green sea foam on another shelf. The fabric was almost transparent and it was very thin. A matching green bra hung on a hanger nearby. "Kyle, be serious. I can't wear this." "Of course you can. Try them on." Part of her wanted to push him away, to tell her son to stop pushing her, to cling to what little sense she still had. But this part gave way to another, the one that wanted to give in, to surrender to its desire. "Okay," she said, taking a set of green underwear from a hanger. Maddie headed for the dressing room. She felt Kyle's presence behind her. She could hear his heavy breathing. When she entered the locker room, she turned around. "You can't come in," she said. "You'll have to wait." "I want to be with you when you try this on," he said. He pointed to the empty space around them. "There's no one else here. No one will mind." "Kyle, Mom, I'm coming with you." With some annoyance, it seemed to her that their rightful places had been reversed, that he was telling her what to do, and she did not know why. She was a mother, but he was an authority figure. He told her what to do. Fulfilling her son's request seemed more important than anything else right now. "All right," she said. She walked forward into the store's dressing room. Booths with closed doors lined up on either side of him. Maddie went to the third compartment on the right, opened the door, and went inside. Kyle followed right behind her. "Try this on, Mom," Kyle said. He didn't ask. "You have to turn around," Maddie said. "No." "Yes, Kyle." The atmosphere of rivalry hung heavily in the small locker room. "Mom, I've already seen you." "Yes, you saw it, but not this time. You have to turn around, or I won't do it. Now we can leave." Maddie considered her options. She couldn't get Kyle to turn around. He was her son, but he was an adult, and the balance in their relationship had changed. And by the severity of his gaze fixed on her, she realized that no amount of pleading would make him turn around. So, she was faced with a choice. Either do as her son wanted, or leave the locker room. All right, she said, resigned. Mom, you look good, fabulous. She heard the change in tone again, from hard, masculine desire to almost boyish surprise. Turn around, Mom. Maddie pirouetted in a circle, slowly, several times for her son. She wondered how long they could stay in the locker room without attracting attention. Kyle didn't seem to care. Kyle, we have to be quiet, or they'll hear us. Kyle didn't say anything. Somewhere inside, Maddie knew that they had been in the dressing room too long and they should leave. She didn't want to be caught by the store security. But Kyle didn't seem to care. He was too busy. Are you all right? Do you need help? It was the voice of a young woman, no doubt the shop assistant they had seen. Maddie almost screamed in surprise and fright. She forced out a trembling voice. Yes, fine. I'm almost done. I'll be out in a minute. Everything got out of control. She wouldn't risk being arrested in a department store fitting room. This is wrong, Kyle. It's a wonderful feeling. Don't get me wrong, but we could be arrested. We have to go. Kyle looked like he wanted to object, but to her relief, he didn't. He must have seen the determination on her face. She opened the door to the locker room and went out, Kyle following her closely. She hoped they wouldn't see the guard waiting for them. To her relief, she saw no one except the shop assistant, who stood motionless and silent. She was obviously reading something while standing behind the counter. The saleswoman looked at them for just a moment before returning to her reading. Her face was expressionless. Maddie began to calm down. Her rapid heartbeat slowed down. She and Kyle walked over to the counter. The employee quickly put away his cell phone. Obviously, she was looking at something on it. A plastic nameplate said Victoria. She looked up at them. Is it ready? What is it? She asked. Maddie wondered if there was something strange about the saleswoman's smile, as if she was hiding something. Yes, Maddie said, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. I have to pull myself together, she thought. After a moment, she dialed the number, put the goods in a plastic bag, and, when the transaction was completed, smiled faintly at Maddie, handing her the receipt. Then Victoria's jaw dropped. She looked from Maddie to Kyle and back again. Oh my God, she said to Kyle. She's your mother. I can tell you. Maddie felt the floor slipping away from under her feet. She couldn't bear the thought of her crime becoming the property of the whole world. Victoria leaned forward. I know what you were doing there. I heard you. Maddie was sure they were about to be arrested. Don't say anything. You are welcome. Victoria shook her head. Not a word, she said. The clock on the wall indicated that it was time for the store to close, and most of the customers had already left. I think it's amazing. She picked up her phone, poked at it with her finger, then turned it so that Maddie and Kyle could see the screen. A page from a website was found in it. Maddie had never heard of this before. I've been dreaming about this since my freshman year of college. You're so lucky. Maddie had no idea what to say to that. Thank you for your help, was all she could manage. She turned to leave, and Kyle followed her. Clerk Victoria called after them. If you ever want to come back and try on something else, don't be shy. I work on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday evenings. It's often deserted here before the store closes, so it's a good time to come. I could have to help. Thanks, Maddie said. Maybe Kyle should date Victoria instead. But no, it won't work. Victoria wasn't Kyle's type. For better or worse, Maddie knew who Kyle's type was. She's on her own. They walked around the store. It was almost deserted here. The mall will close in 2 minutes. A voice boomed from somewhere unknown. Please go to the exit. They found a garage door and an elevator leading to the upper level. Neither Maddie nor Kyle said anything. When the doors opened, the hot night air hit them in the face. They went outside, and the sky was completely dark, although the city sparkled around them with a grid of flickering lights, and lamps on tall poles illuminated the parking lots with a chalky glow. Maddie noticed her car ahead, the only one left on this level. Everyone else has already left. The lantern near her car had obviously burned out, so it was darkened in the dark. If Maddie had been alone, she would have been nervous walking across the parking lot to her car in the dark, but next to her tall and strong son, she felt no fear at all. He might have been her son, but he had the figure of a man. They walked up to the car, and she opened the doors with a snap of her keychain, but when she gestured to open the front door, she noticed Kyle standing next to her instead of going around to the passenger side. Dad's home, and today he refused to drink. I think We can't do this with Dad around. He'll find out. So, what are we going to do, Kyle? Rent a motel? He shook his head again. No, he said. Right here. Kyle, stop it. We're in public. We may be seen and arrested. No, it's okay, he insisted. There's no one here. The whole level is empty. The lights are out, and it's dark in here. No one will see us. A lone figure with a bag in his hands was walking through the dark, empty parking lot from the store. It looked like it was a man. He was about 150 meters away from them and was heading towards a car that was parked at a decent distance from other cars. His path would have brought him closer, less than 90 meters away. He was looking ahead, and Maddie was sure he hadn't seen her before. Kyle either didn't see the man, or he didn't care. Distressed, she saw the figure of the man below, now near his car stop. He was standing under a lamp, so you could see his face a little bit. He looked around and then looked up. There was no doubt about it now. He had seen her. Kyle, Maddie said in a choked, breathy voice. There's a man down there. He can see us. Is he a policeman? He asked. No. Looks, she said, breathing heavily. As a customer? She goes to his car. Okay, Kyle said. He's not going to do anything. It was dark outside and dark inside, but Maddie still cowered in the car seat. She didn't want anyone to see her. For reasons that weren't really reasons, she knew she was going to do as Kyle suggested. The chances of her being seen by a neighbor were slim. But there was a certain risk. You're going back to college, she said. It's bad for you to get so hung up on your mother. Mom, let me worry about myself. I'm worried about you. You know Dad won't make you happy. And I don't think you're the type to get divorced. I can make you happy. It was true. Kyle was right about that. Maddie was thinking about getting a divorce. But something held her back. She wasn't sure what it was: money, security, appearance, the vow she made years ago when they were in church, and she imagined a happy life with her new husband. Despite her husband's inadequacy, she resisted leaving him. The city was a dark blur as Kyle drove them home. Maddie was lost in thought. And